In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at this upcoming major snowstorm where I think models have really come together. They've lowered the amounts down to what I've discussed, being more realistic. So I'm glad about that. Things are looking more in line with what my thinking has been. We're going to go over that as well as some colder air and more snowfall opportunities in the east and central states over the coming 1 or 2 weeks here. Let's go ahead and dive into things. We're going to take a look at this European model for the Super Bowl Sunday here. You know, you're going to have some pretty nasty weather across the southeast, across the deep south, even the south central here as well. So these areas here is really where we're looking at the stormier weather. It's been a wet one here in Virginia. Really nasty. We had some flooding overnight, and it's just really groggy outside. We also have some pretty nasty weather across the northwest. So for areas like Washington State, Oregon, and into the northern Rockies, we do have some snowfall and rainfall respectively. Let's go ahead and take this towards tomorrow on Monday. We'll know who the Super Bowl champion is by tomorrow, and the NFL season will be over. Pretty sad stuff. I always hate this time of year. It's kind of the peak of it, of course, but once that's over, it's just done, and then we have to wait so long for it to come back. I'm a big football fan, as you guys probably have noticed behind me there. I don't pay as much attention as I used to, but I do enjoy the Super Bowl, the NFL in general, and just paying attention. Our storm is already coming together by tomorrow, so this is going to be the beginning of it, and we see some storminess out ahead of it to the east. Again, this is going to come in the form of heavier showers and thunderstorms up this southeast area. We do have some snowfall, perhaps kind of mixing in here for Arkansas into Missouri and a little bit of southern Illinois. And as we head towards the overnight hour, we're obviously going to see areas cooling down. And what we see is this is going to basically transition offshore from this point. So again, we expect this kind of northern trajectory, then a slide off the coast, and then it's going to kind of head offshore from there. So it takes this little skid offshore. We see some pretty heavy snowfall for central and eastern Kentucky, portions of West Virginia, portions of southern Ohio, into Pennsylvania, and into New England. Definitely something that we're thinking about, concerned about, and really an impactful snowstorm system that I think is likely going to be one of the most, if not the most impactful snowstorms of the season. Due to intensity, and not only that, just the pure amount of snowfall looks to be probably around the most that we've seen in the eastern states. As we take a look at the morning hour of Tuesday here, we see heavier snowfall developing as this low is intensifying offshore. Once it gets over water, it's going to continue to intensify down to a 983. So this European model has weakened it off a little bit. Remember yesterday, if you watched, we saw it drop it down to like a 978 here. We've seen it come back up about 5 millibars, so a little bit weaker, but it really is a pretty minuscule difference in the intensity of snowfall, that 5 millibar difference. We really proceed to see heavy snowfall from eastern Kentucky here up into West Virginia, northern Pennsylvania, southern New York, and southern New England here, just along the lines of what we've been expecting. We see it still going on by Tuesday afternoon for New England especially, but also northern New Jersey perhaps, and southern New York there finishing up. And it is down into the 970s by this point, so it's continuing to intensify as it moves away. And then it's all but said and done in Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. We're left with some cooler air around. We do see another system moving in for around Thursday, Friday time frame. That's going to be the 15th into the 16th, and this is going to be more of an inland system. There's enough cold air, though, to where this is primarily looking like a snowfall system for the mid-Atlantic and Northeast here. Definitely a pretty intense system that moves offshore as a 992. So again, this one that we're talking about upcoming is in the 970s, 980s. But typically a 990 system is going to be relatively strong. So that should show you how intense a 980s or 970s millibar system would really be. As we keep going here, we see colder air. I mean, really the pattern we're left with is a positive PNA, that stands for Pacific North American Oscillation out west. Very warm and dry. This is what we expected to see a lot of this winter, and this is what we've seen a lot of this winter. And what this does is it encourages cold air to dive into the central and eastern states. And meanwhile, we have this classic El Nino southern stream of moisture heading in. So these two combining here is what's been leading to our snowstorms this season. That's for Saturday. And into Sunday, I mean, we're left with still very cold air across the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes here, and into the Mid-Atlantic and eventually the Northeast there as well. Meanwhile, we have a little bit of a snowstorm system for the Northern Rockies as well as the Cascade Mountains there on Sunday the 18th. So keep that in mind, the Northern Rockies and Cascades, we're seeing some intensity there. For Monday here on the 19th, we're continuing to see a little bit of a pushback of this warmth up the coast, but this cold air is already primed and ready to move back in right behind it. So as we keep going towards Tuesday, we see this cold air is diving down, and interestingly enough, we have a low pressure system trying to move along it, which I think there is some potential here around that 20th time frame. We're going to be watching for that. With the cold air moving in, with the coastal low moving in, that's obviously going to draw some red flags for a potential snow system there for late February. Also, another thing to note here is we have more intensity, more storms moving onshore to the west by this point, so certainly an area of interest there. And then for the end of the model run, we leave with about the same thing happening. GFS model, let's go ahead and dive into this upcoming snowstorm. It looks about the same. I mean, we're really getting good agreement here. I would say the only difference is by Tuesday morning, we have this snowfall diving a little bit further southward into the mid-Atlantic, southern Pennsylvania getting involved, also Maryland and northern Virginia getting involved. So a little bit further south there on the GFS model. We do get that heavier snowfall on the back end for northern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or better yet, New York there. And then throughout New England there, we're seeing that heavier snowfall by Tuesday afternoon. And again, just like the European model, that one does move out and offshore eventually there. We do get that kind of follow-up system, more of an inland pure snow event here for the Northeast and a little bit of the northern mid-Atlantic if you consider Pennsylvania and New Jersey the mid-Atlantic. I do. So that is going to be partially involving the mid-Atlantic there. By the time we see our next system around the 17th on this model, we get a little bit more southern moisture moving in with that cold air moving down. So this combination there really leads to some potential here around that 17th time frame. But contrary to the European model, we don't have a coastal system around the 20th. We do have some cold air there Monday into Tuesday, but that moves up pretty rapidly. The southern moisture is too far to the south, which is classic for the GFS, by the way. So this is too far south. The cold air is too far to the north, and we don't really get a connection here because of that reason. Pretty obvious. So we're going to need to track that, and that's more of the long-range stuff that we take a look at. The potential's there. They're not coming together on every model, though. But here on the 23rd, in the extended range, we do get another northeast snowstorm with some cold air moving in. And maybe even some more storms on the way, as you can see, and more cold air as we're approaching the very end of February here, as we have a deep Arctic blast moving in. Warmer air along the west here, classic with a positive PNA, and that's going to encourage that cold air to spread all the way to the east coast if this occurs the way this model is suggesting. Now, the total precipitation, we are seeing an increase now back out west as that storminess does look to continue and return eventually, especially for the Cascades and Sierra Nevadas. We're concerned about snowfall, but also the northern Rockies here. You can see there's a bit of some heavier precipitation in this area. Definitely worth noting. And then the deeper south into the east coast here, definitely also seeing some heavier amounts out that way as well, with this southern stream of moisture that looks to head into this area. Meanwhile, again, cold air moving into these areas, so snowfall is a big concern in the eastern half of the nation. Speaking of snowfall, total snowfall in the European model here, plenty out west, actually an increase from what we've been seeing over the coming days, as again, we do expect that return of the activity. Across the deeper south into the northeast, we do have this major snowstorm that's going to move across these areas, and that is what's leading to this. Let's go ahead and zoom into the east here, the northeast in particular, where we do see the total snowfall. Let's get the storm total real quickly. So here's that big snowstorm. More in line with what I've been thinking, we see the north central regions of Pennsylvania seeing those 10-inch plus amounts. Also into, actually we have this on centimeters, so ignore those amounts real quick. Here's the inches, better yet. And again, we were seeing those 20 plus inch amounts, and I was telling you guys, I think it's going to be closer to 10 to 15 maybe in the bullseye. And we've seen this model fall in line more with that ideology. For north central Pennsylvania, southern New York, northern New Jersey there, and then southern New England, seeing those kind of 10-inch plus amounts there. Nothing close to 20 though, and that's kind of what my thinking has been all along. Now the GFS model, as we kind of just continue this to the total model run, we see a ton out west, of course, like I said, some activity across the north central states and even the south central states getting some snowfall here with this upcoming snow system. Let's take a look at the northeast though, and as we take a look here, we see massive amounts over the entire model run, but for the storm total amounts here, it's going to be right about this, and we're seeing things kind of in line with what the European model is showing. I would say it's a little bit further north with those 10 10 to 15 inch amounts, mostly being here for north central Pennsylvania, an area known for doing pretty well in these types of situations. And also the Catskills of New York there. And then New England gets a little bit less, more like 6 to 10 inches, with some 10-inch plus amounts for the Berkshires and also the kind of southeast Massachusetts areas. I think this is a little bit underdone, though. I think we will see some pretty solid 10-inch amounts for southern New England, with some mixing near the coast being a concern. So mostly for these inland areas of Massachusetts, northern Connecticut, northern Rhode Island, southern New Hampshire, and southern Vermont. I also think that Maine will do a little bit better than what this is projecting. And as we take a look at the European model, well, maybe not. I mean, we're seeing lower amounts here, but they tend to overperform typically in these types of situations. I think that they'll see a lot closer to 4 to maybe 6-inch amounts as opposed to these 2 to maybe 4-inch amounts. So I'd say, click that up a couple inches there for coastal New England and coastal Maine in particular, as we have a low nearby. Cold air, I think we're going to see a little bit more snow than these models are projecting. That's just my personal opinion, though. Now, as we take a look at the total model run amount here with multiple snowstorms, we can see that we are expecting massive amounts throughout the Northeast and northern Mid-Atlantic, as I was mentioning. So definitely storm after storm is going to add up here. So keep that in mind. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe as we do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.